There is an abundance of opportunities, of money, of resources, of connections, of relationships, of love waiting for you that is destined for you to experience in this lifetime. But you will not be able to experience the abundance of these things until you exit the energy of scarcity. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to be so energetically rich, like my guy here, that scarcity can no longer find you. So if you find yourself saying things like, money is difficult to make, money is tight, I can't afford it, there are no good jobs, there are no good opportunities, there's no room for promotion, I can't get clients, there's a recession, the cost of living is going up. All of this points to you living in an energy of scarcity. And if you're living in an energy of scarcity, that means you are guaranteed 100% going to remain in a reality of scarcity. Most people live in a reality of scarcity because the majority have been programmed to believe in scarcity. So there's this narrative in society that money is limited, that opportunities are limited, that wealth is reserved for the few lucky people, for the 1%. And this is just a story. It's a story that you've been programmed with ever since you were young. It permeates media, it permeates all, even like children's movies, news, marketing, everything is permeated with this narrative. And so you have been programmed with the narrative of limitation, of scarcity, of not enoughness ever since you were young. And that is why you have a reality where you feel like you never have enough. So even though you may not have chosen this lack mindset or this scarcity energy, even though it was probably programmed into you and it's been on autopilot, you do have the responsibility now to change it, and you do have the power to change it. What you accept as true, what you accept as your narrative is going to be what you experience. You can't experience anything outside of your level of consciousness, outside of your narrative and your belief system. And I am sharing this with you guys as somebody who's been through this. I used to constantly run out of money. I was very energetically poor. I was not energetically rich at all. I was always worried about how I was going to pay my rent. I was always running out of money. And to me, wealth and abundance just seemed like this impossible thing that was just for other people. That was for this few lucky people who had something going on that I could never figure out what it was. No matter how much harder I worked, no matter how much more I did, even when I changed, I went from working minimum wage, shitty jobs, to working a corporate job, to then starting my own business. I did all the things on paper that I could think to do to try and get abundance into my reality. But it wasn't until I exited the energy of lack and the energy of scarcity that the abundance actually started showing up in my reality. So we have 3 points to go through today. But before we get into it, the overarching thing that you need to know is you are experiencing lack and scarcity in your circumstances, in your money, in your opportunities, in your reality, because your internal world is that of scarcity and lack, okay? So your physical world is mirroring back to you what your internal world is. So what you call reality is just the frequency that is perceptible to your level of consciousness, okay? So what you call reality is just the frequency that is perceptible to your level of consciousness, to your state of awareness. So the frequency that you're operating within, the energetic frequency that you have in your state of being, is what you're perceiving in reality. You can't perceive anything outside that. So what physical reality actually is it's just a bunch of particles vibrating at particular frequencies, okay? And the ones that are perceptible to you specifically is what resonates to your state and your level of consciousness. So whilst you're in a level of consciousness of lack, of scarcity, of limitation, you cannot perceive a reality of abundance, of overflow, of possibility. And I know you guys know this. Think about it, okay? Whether you have a business or you're working a job, you've probably had experiences that confirm this truth to you, but you haven't really reflected on it for long enough to realize that it is the core truth of how this universe operates. you know, when you go through a phase, let's say, for example, you have a business. This is something that I used to get a lot in my marketing agency, where you're just in a funk, right? Maybe you lost a couple of clients and now you're down to one client or no clients. And now you feel like you're scrambling. Okay. So you've started to worry about money. You've started to worry about things running out, about not having enough. And so that permeates your energy. You get into a desperate energy where you feel like you don't have enough and you need to chase things. And then all of a sudden, outreach becomes impossible. Nobody's replying to your emails. Nobody's answering the phone. People are hanging up on you like they never have before. Your sales calls are just going so badly, when before maybe they were going really well. Nothing changed except for your level of consciousness. So you're not getting anything from reality. So let's get this into your head first and foremost. Nobody is giving you anything. Nobody's taking anything away from you. You're embodying an energy, whether it's the energy of lack or abundance. And that energy is dictating what you're experiencing in reality. The end. So I don't care what situation you're thinking of right now, whether it be maybe you lost your job, maybe you can't find a job, maybe you lost all your clients, maybe you're finding it really hard to get clients. It's nothing to do with getting anything. It's nothing to do with the jobs, the clients, the paycheck, the bill. It's everything to do with you. Okay. So the paying client and the sales call that went amazingly well, that's just a reflection of you. The sales call that went terribly, the client that left you, that's a reflection of you and your energy. Okay. And so I'm going to be showing you today how to change the only thing that actually matters, the lens through which you're seeing reality, which is your energy, because you cannot land in a reality of abundance while still in an energy of scarcity. Your internal world of scarcity means you cannot perceive a physical world of abundance. You will always have to perceive the mirror reflection of what you are. There's a video that came up on my Instagram feed a couple of days ago. It's that new movie, you know, the table tennis one with Timothée Chalamet. I can never say his name properly. And I think it's Gwyneth Paltrow asked him, like, what if this doesn't work out? And he goes, that doesn't even enter my consciousness. That is the level that you want to get to in your energy. That is how you start becoming energetically rich. When scarcity, when lack, when limitation, when all of this negative circumstances, when they don't even enter your consciousness, that is when you become extremely abundant. And that's when you become untouchable to scarcity in your circumstances and in your reality. When you get to the point in your awareness that lack doesn't even enter your consciousness, you will be in a reality of abundance and not a moment sooner. So the reason that you're experiencing scarcity in your circumstances is because you are in the frequency of scarcity. This is 80% of people in this world. This is a lie, which we're going to get into in a second. It's an illusion. It's a false god. However, this is what 80% or more of people are experiencing. The essence of this energy of scarcity is not enough. So there's not enough money, there's not enough opportunities, there's not enough love, there's not enough connection. There's just not enough. And so the energy of scarcity, it's not even just in money. Usually, if you have a frequency of scarcity in one area, you have it in another area. So you might see this reflected in your finances, but you might also notice that you're settling in your relationships, in your friendships, where you live, etc., etc. It permeates everything. So your thoughts are focused around lack and how you don't have enough of these things. And that results in a behavior of chasing things, which is dangerous, because what happens when you chase things? You put things on an energetic pedestal above you. So you're down here, and these things that you feel the lack of are above you energetically. Now, this is a false premise to be operating from. And this is where the programming of the world has done you wrong, okay? We put things, we put material outcomes, we put money, we put people, we put opportunities on pedestals above us, and we chase them because we don't realize that we are the creative life force energy that is responsible for our entire experience. And if we were to die and our conscious awareness were to leave our body, our experience of what's called reality would cease. It would stop. And so your desires, your goals, these things They cannot be above you, okay? And even if we break down the planes of existence, I know I always bring this up, but we exist on the spiritual plane, the mental plane, and the physical plane. The physical plane is the lowest form of consciousness, okay? The spiritual is the highest, and then the mental is kind of like the in-between. So I call the mental plane the portal between the spiritual, which is the highest plane, and the physical, which is the lowest plane. The reason it's a portal is because it's a higher form of consciousness than the physical, but it's not as high a form of consciousness as the spiritual. But it has a fractal of the creative conscious energy that is God, that is source consciousness. That's why we've been gifted higher mental faculties like creativity, intuition, vision, intellect, reasoning, all of these higher mental faculties. Why do you think we have those? Do you never stop to slow down and think about the energy that's in your body, the life that's in your body, the imagination that's in your brain, like all of these gifts that you were given to live and create, and yet you're taking something that's a material object and you're placing it above you. It doesn't make sense when you actually think about it. And so this whole premise is based on a lie that money is above you, that these things are above you, that these situations are above you, when in fact nothing is above you, because you are the creative consciousness that's creating your whole experience. So you've taken the life force creative energy, which is unlimited, that God has given to you, and you've funneled it into these ideas and concepts based on limitation. And so what that does is it creates for you an energy of limitation, a frequency of limitation. When all you need to do to start breaking that loop is to stop funneling your energy into limitation and start funneling it into possibility. Because right now, all that you're experiencing is this feedback loop of perceiving lack and then deciding to be energetically lack because of what you're perceiving with your eyes. So you're saying, and I always say this, I see lack, I believe in lack, I feel lack. Then I see more lack. Then I believe in more lack, I feel more lack, and then I see more lack. And so you think that there's just lack because there's just lack, but that's not the case. You're perceiving lack because you are in lack energetically, because you're believing in lack, because you're feeling the emotions of lack. And so the only way that you're going to start to break this feedback loop is you're going to see lack. You're going to see it, and then you're going to break the feedback loop by saying, I'm not going to be lack, I'm going to be abundant. And then the mirror reflection of what you see in your circumstances will reflect that new energy back to you. In the law of correspondence in Hermeticism, they say as within, as without. And essentially what that means is if within you're feeling lack, stress, fear, worry, when it comes to, for example, your finances, what does that communicate? It communicates that you have something to be stressed, fearful, and worried about. It communicates that there is lack in your reality. And then guess what? There will be lack, stress, etc. in your reality. If all you've ever experienced within, internally, is lack, then you cannot comprehend or experience more than lack externally. And there's two big reasons why you're stuck in this frequency, why you got in this frequency and why you're stuck in this frequency. So you're in the frequency of scarcity because you've been believing in a big fat lie. The lie is that there is not enough, that money is finite, opportunities are limited, love is rare, etc., etc. You've been believing in this big fat lie. Now I say the word lie. It's not so much a lie as it is a half truth. Okay. So long as you accept this narrative that there's not enough, that money is finite, that it's limited, that opportunities are running out, that resources are limited, that love is rare, then that's going to be your reality. If you accept that as a reality, it will play out for you as a reality. The reason it's a lie is because it's not the full picture. This is one version of what could be experienced as reality. Yes, it's the version that 80% or more of people are living, but this is not the full picture and this is not what you have to experience. Think about people who are ridiculously successful, okay? Think about people who are making money like they breathe air, who came from nothing and are now making money like they breathe air. They have opportunities falling into their lap. They have a beautiful relationship. Think about those people. Why can they experience something that's so contrary to this? Because this is not the full truth, okay? And the actual full truth and what's closer to the truth is that there is no limitation. There is more than enough. There are infinite opportunities. Love is abundant. How do we know that this is closer to the truth? This is based on the limited perception of the ego. This, if you connect to your higher self and your truly infinite nature, the infinite nature of your soul, this is closer to the truth. Let's take the example of opportunities here. Opportunities are limited. To who? Why? How? By who? You're the one creating the opportunities that are available to you through your energy. So opportunities are only limited if you accept that and your energy is limited. Money is finite. They're literally printing money, right? They just print money out of thin air. Money is basically generated. I have a whole video on money specifically. I'll leave it down below. But money is generated and exchanged as a medium of value, okay? So if you figure out how to generate value and exchange it, you will receive money. Depending on the amount of value you can generate, there is no limit on the amount of money you can receive off the back end. So money is not finite. It is not limited. It's only limited to the degree in which your energy, paradigm, and belief is limited. Love is rare. This is a narrative that I hate to see on social media these days. Love is not rare. Love is our essence. We're all connected. We're all one. The source is love and oneness and connection. So it is abundant unless you've accepted this as your truth, and then you'll experience it as a rarity. You'll experience it as impossible. All of these things that you yearn for, that you desire, they're just energies. They're different energies that you would like to experience. And energy is infinite. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. There is no limitation except for the limitations that your ego and your programming is placing on things. So this is the first cause as to why you're in a scarcity energy and the frequency of scarcity. You're believing in this big fat lie. This does not have to be your truth. If you want to stop living in the frequency of scarcity, you've got to stop believing in this big fat lie. The second reason, you may not expect it, but it's very important that I mention it. You're in an energy of scarcity because you are in a state of survival mode in your nervous system. Most people are in a state of survival mode. What is survival mode? It's a state of chronic nervous system dysregulation. We're going throughout this experience in reality, and we're placed in these pressure cookers where all of these traumatic, distressing things are happening to us. And we're not given the tools to cope with things when they happen. And so what happens is we store painful experiences inside us. Our nervous system becomes dysregulated, and we never resolve the scary thing or the hurtful thing or whatever it is that happened. So our body thinks we're in danger constantly. We're also programmed to just work harder and hustle more, which, by the way, doesn't get you anywhere beyond a certain point because you can never out hustle your energy. That also puts you in a chronic state of dysregulation where you're just burnt out. You're so busy and you're getting nowhere. You're like a hamster on a wheel. So what does this look like? You're unstable in your emotional state. You're having like a lot of like highs and lows. You're burnt out. You cannot slow down, overthinking constantly. Now, why has this put you in a frequency of scarcity? Okay, we're going to just remind ourselves. This is survival mode below this line. So this is the lower state of consciousness. This is a higher state of consciousness. When you are in a lower state of consciousness, when you're in survival mode, when you don't feel safe in your body because you have unresolved trauma, or you're just in a very inherently stressful situation constantly, or you just don't have the tools to know how to reconnect to your body and stop overthinking and regulate your nervous system, then essentially what happens is you are not able to signal safety to your body, right? You're not able to become present in your body. You're not able to relax. And so you stay in a very low state of consciousness where all you're doing constantly is scanning your environment for threats and for negativity, because that's what resonates with you when you're in survival mode. Okay, so when we look at switching out of the frequency of scarcity and into the frequency of abundance, the first thing you're actually going to focus on is exiting survival mode. Because even if, let's say, for example, you somehow have like your dream partner, right? You suddenly have these connections coming up, or you suddenly have opportunities falling in your lap. If you're still in survival mode, if you're still very dysregulated, you're still going to be scanning for threats and negativity by default. You could have opportunities sitting right in front of you, but because you're in a lower state of awareness, the opportunities are in this vibration. They're up here, right? You're down here because you're so dysregulated, you feel so unsafe that you can't see them. You cannot perceive them. All you can perceive is the negative, is the lack, and is the threats. So I've had people who they have seemingly very successful businesses, but they're still in an energy of lack and they're still in an energy of scarcity because they're still chronically dysregulated. So they run out of money. You know, certain deals fall through their fingers because they're still in survival mode. They haven't registered that they're safe, that they're abundant. Even if you have loads of things, if you're dysregulated, you'll still see the lack. Okay, so abundance is not actually about the things that you have or what you're getting or what you're not getting, as I mentioned in the beginning. It's the energetic state that you're in. So a person who on paper has less things, they could feel more abundant and they could be happier and they could be flowing in their reality so much more because of their energy. And this is actually something that I experienced last year. So I was kind of taken on a journey with this different experiences of consciousness last year. I got to a point in my inner work where I had released a lot and I was finally operating in this kind of higher creative consciousness. I was doing what I loved. I was making content. I was aligning everything that I desired in my business. It was all just flowing and unfolding beautifully. Then I had a trigger come up, okay? And this trigger, something happened in my external reality that triggered an old shadow part of me. And I repressed it for a little while, which is not what you're supposed to do. And what this did is it put me into survival mode again. It put me into fight or flight. So I started, overworking. I started burning myself out. My nervous system became very dysregulated. I started getting anxiety. And immediately what happened was I went from being so connected to my vision, to seeing all of these opportunities, all of these blessings, to being so relaxed and feeling like I had more than enough skills, more than enough energy, more than enough connections, opportunities, everything, to suddenly, because my state had shifted and I became dysregulated, I felt like I didn't have enough. It happened just like this. And I started chasing. I didn't feel like I was enough all of a sudden. I didn't feel like I had enough good ideas. I felt like my ideas weren't good enough. I felt like I didn't have enough resources. Like suddenly my perception changed and I could only see the negative. I could no longer see the good. I could no longer see the blessings because they didn't resonate with me when I went back into this mode of survival, because my state of consciousness was much lower. I was in that ego state of consciousness that was chasing everything in the external world, not realizing that I already had everything. Okay. So what I had to do in that situation, I had to go and regulate my nervous system. I had to deal with the trigger that was coming up. And then once I dealt with it and released it, my energy shifted again. And suddenly I could perceive reality completely differently and through the lens of abundance once again, because I was back in the energy of abundance again. So I can't stress, the frequency of abundance starts with you exiting survival mode. And I see a lot of people on my videos in the comments and in the community as well, and they're trying to get things in physical reality to make them feel a certain way, and they're chronically dysregulated. They're in fight or flight mode and they're wondering why it's not working. It's because you're chasing, not coming home into your energy to realize that you are enough and you already have everything you need within you to create the energy that you desire so that you can then perceive it externally. Okay. So step one in my community, step one that I always bring up if I have a step-by-step resource, is regulation. Okay. Regulate your nervous system, come back to stillness, come back to that 0 point awareness, because from there you can connect to the truth that you have more than enough. And that is abundance. Okay. So it's not actually physically having things. No. You should know by now. It's an internal state of having more than enough. When I say becoming energetically rich, this is what I mean by energetically rich. You know and feel and embody the energy of being more than enough, of having more than enough. And this requires you to change your definition of having. Okay. So a lot of the reason why you're feeding into lack and scarcity and why that's still part of your program is because you're thinking about having things materially instead of having things internally and energetically. And you're always going to be in lack so long as you're doing that, because we never actually have anything externally. Anything that we're experiencing as an external reality, as a physical reality, is temporary. So every single thing that you have, even if you feel like you don't have very much, it's actually been added to you. It's been given to you by source, by God. It's been created by source consciousness. And you're enjoying a temporary kind of rental of this thing, whatever amount of money you have, whatever relationships you have. You don't actually have those things. Okay? You're getting to experience them for a short amount of time. And then that experience will end. So that's not the true definition of having. The true definition of what you have is your energy, is your internal state, is your soul, and is your connection to the divine. Everything you have is a gift from God. The experience of having something is always going to be temporary. We came into this world naked. It says it in the story of Genesis. We came into this world naked, and we will never lose what is truly ours. And this is how you start tapping into the energy of abundance. When you know and register that things are just a temporary experience, and those experiences have been gifted to you from the infinite source consciousness that created you and created everything else, then you can take things off the pedestal, which is not where they're supposed to be. And you can start putting your energy on a pedestal, which is the way things are supposed to be. And with that, you enter a state of abundance, which is needing nothing external. Peaceful, calm, and detached. Okay, so this is like the 0 point that I talk about. This is coming into the observer consciousness within you and detaching from needing things. That's where you start really cultivating the energy of abundance from within. Now, I have a question for you to reflect on. If you had more than enough, how would you show up? You would not chase. You would not be running after things, trying to gain things in external reality. You would not be settling. You would not be making excuses. And you would certainly not be changing yourself just to get things in the external world. If you already had more than enough things, if you already had more than enough, if you didn't need anything in external reality, how would you show up? You would just probably show up as your full, authentic self. So the biggest shortcut I can give you to start becoming energetically rich and tapping into this frequency of abundance is authenticity. Let me put it to you like this. If God is the creative force that created everything in this reality, and that is pure creative life force energy, consciousness flowing through this reality, the more that you align with who God designed you to be and who you truly are, the more you become a portal for that life force energy to pass to you and through you, the more you can access God's supply into your life. When you stop operating from ego and wearing a mask and running after these falsehoods in reality, that's when you start operating as the infinite self. You start aligning with the God within you. That is when God's supply can unfold into your life. And God's supply is infinite because God created everything. God's not on a budget. So you see here, this is a total reframe of what you're making the source, your energy and your abundance and the definition of who you are. And it's a total shift from valuing things to valuing your energy. Because when you value your energy, you value God, because the energy that you have within you is the energy of God. And I've given this analogy before, but I'm going to just share it with you guys. Your energy is what's aligning abundance to you, okay? So whatever you seek, let's take money as the example. Money is a store of life force energy. It's an exchange of value. But you're the one who has the creative life force energy within you. Collectively, humans, we all gathered together with our creative consciousness and life force and decided to give money value, okay? But you are the being who has that inherent value in the form of life force energy. And so as soon as you start actually valuing that, your energy over material things, that is when you're able to actually start channeling your energy into things that are aligned and things that you value and things that other people value as well. It's not when you're chasing things. It's when you're aligned, perceiving your value, operating within your value, knowing your value, and then naturally creating off the back of knowing that value. That's how you create real value for others in the marketplace. And then value is sent back to you in the form of money. This is how you generate wealth. But it starts with not valuing money, not worshiping money as your God, but coming back to valuing you and your energy and valuing the creative consciousness within you, which is God. So you have to stop defining yourself based on trying to get a particular deal or get a certain client to pay you, or just basing yourself off people and situations and money and chasing all of these things. You want to flip it entirely, because that's when these things start chasing you. And again, remember, nobody's giving you anything. You're not getting anything. You're embodying an energy, and then that's what you're perceiving. I have another question for you. So this is the first question. Start asking yourself, if you had more than enough, how would you show up? The second question, if there were no limits, what would you do? The people, the blessings, the relationships, the opportunities, the money that's destined for you can't find you if you don't start being you. If you don't start going for what you really want to go for and showing up how you really want to show up in a way that is actually truly you. It's like all of this stuff, all of this abundance that's destined for you is locked away in a vault, and it has a frequency around it. And until you become who you actually are and you start owning that and being confident and unapologetic in that, you are not going to be tuning into that frequency. You're not going to be able to align with those blessings. And it reminds me of the scripture in Genesis, be fruitful, multiply, have dominion. You have to be more before you can do more, before you can have more. It was laid out to us right there in the Bible. You cannot have more until you do more, and you cannot do more until you be more. So why don't you just start being the biggest, most abundant, most authentic, most you version of you that you can be? Because then you'll naturally start doing the things that you are supposed to do and having the things that you are supposed to have. I'm going to give you one last point before we finish up. How to stay in the frequency of abundance despite physical circumstances that are suggesting lack to you. First things first, you just stay regulated. Stay out of that survival mode in your nervous system, because as soon as you go into survival mode dysregulation, you are disconnected from your higher state of consciousness, and you are immediately going to start perceiving lack. Automatically, it's going to be very hard for you to shift beyond that when you're dysregulated. So stay regulated. I have a video on how to get out of survival mode. I'll leave it down below if you think that you are dysregulated. The second thing to stay in the abundant energy despite your circumstances. This sounds kind of simple, like stupidly simple, but the best things are simple. Focus on abundance. No matter what's happening in your reality. And here's something I want you to remember. When you change your energy, you have to be okay being a new self in an old reality for a while. That is the ticket to your new reality, okay? So it's not just that you shift your energy and suddenly everything's different. No. For a period of time, you're going to be standing in your old circumstances. You're going to be standing in your old financial situation, work situation, love life situation, as a new self. And you have to accept that and be okay with that. That for some time, you're going to be in what I call the training ground of the new self. And the things like challenges or things that are happening and unfolding in front of you, let's say you get an unexpected bill or something happens that maybe triggers you, would normally trigger you back into a lack mindset or a lack energy. Those are opportunities for you to show reality that you are no longer in that energy, that your energy has changed now. So this is the training ground. And as these things are coming up, what you can do, if a situation comes up that normally you would interpret that and go down a negative spiral of lack and scarcity, you still want to just say, no, I'm focusing on the abundance that still exists. I don't care if the only abundance you have is some fruit in your fruit bowl in your house, right? And maybe you don't know how you're going to pay for groceries next week. Go and look at the fruit and count each banana and each pear and each apple. This is stuff that I've done, you guys. And say, thank you, God. Oh, wow, this is amazing. I have so much fruit to eat for breakfast. You need to get into an energy of overflow, because no matter what energy it is that you're experiencing, if you're experiencing the lack of a particular energy, so for example, money, if you keep focusing on the lack of money, you're going to stay polarized on that spectrum of that energy. And how you start moving along in the degree of intensity that you're experiencing of the energy, for example, of money, is you have to start focusing on the opposite pole, which is abundance, in whatever way that you can. So even if you have $50, you say, wow, this is amazing. I'm so abundant. I have $50. Even if you have to focus on abundance in other areas of your life to start bringing in that energy of abundance and that perspective of abundance, do that. This is what I did as well. When I moved to Spain, I still didn't have any money at all, really. But what I did have was connections all of a sudden. What I did have was a beautiful environment. What I did have was a fresh start. I had an internet connection. I had some time. I had really made some amazing connections around me that were doing well in business. And so even though my financial situation was still in lack, I started focusing on all the things that were in abundance. And that started shifting me into an energy of abundance overall. And then my financial situation started to change. So you simply, even if you're in physical circumstances where things seem like they're in lack, you focus on the abundance in your reality. The next one, you want to act as a cause, okay? The moment that you respond differently to your circumstances is the moment that they start changing. But if you respond in the same old way that you've always responded, they're going to stay the same. So you have to stop being a slave to your circumstances. Circumstances don't have power over you unless you say they do, but you have power over circumstances. Constantly, whether you know it or not, they're always responding to you and your energy. So I want you to just get to a point in your awareness where you look at the situation in front of you and you say to yourself, this is irrelevant because I'm changing my reaction and I'm changing my energy right now and I'm the cause. So whatever I'm seeing in front of me, I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to react. I'm not going to get triggered because I know it's going to change because I've just changed my energy, and you let it go. The fourth point, you want to change your story. What do I mean by this? Start getting evidence. Whatever it is that you're experiencing lack and scarcity in, and you want to experience abundance in, you need to start getting examples that are going to help you change your story. So for example, with money, I know this is obviously one of the biggest ones. If you have a lot of examples of lack and limitation and scarcity, you need to start getting examples, whether through YouTube videos or online communities or in person, of people who are very wealthy and abundant, and perhaps in ways that you don't expect. You want to start getting examples that money is easy to make, okay? That you don't have to bend over backwards and kill yourself in order to make money, that you can do it in a way that feels aligned and feels good. Whatever it is that you want your new story to be, you need supporting evidence for that story. So go out and find it. This happened to me in my money story as well. When I have a community, it's called Cosmic Creators, and it's based on a platform called Skool, Skool. And we came top 5 in self-improvement last year in Q3. And I went to this mastermind with all these other owners of these communities. And I met people who had school communities for gaming, for teaching people how to play Fortnite better. There was one guy, he had a skateboarding community. And I just thought, wow. If the old me could have sat in this room and met all of these people who are making amazing income, doing what they love, and just posting videos and sharing their passion with people in the community space, my money mindset would have flipped so quickly. I never knew, years ago, I never would have even been able to conceive how effortless and easy it was to make money doing such interesting, like strange things. I just thought you have to be like this corporate business person in order to make money, but that is not true, okay? So you have to start breaking outside your paradigm. You do that by getting evidence for your new story. And even if it's not money, if it's relationships, start, if you have your feed full of like this toxic stuff about relationships, this used to be me. Get rid of that. Stop looking at that. Start getting examples of like power couples or healthy relationships, because they do exist. Okay. And the last one that I'm always going to mention, you want to be releasing blocks around whatever area it is. So let's say you're experiencing scarcity in money. Okay. If you have actually quite traumatic past experiences that revolved around money, it's a good idea to go and do shadow work with those parts of you that were created in those moments, because those parts of you are going to be kind of deeply rooted within you. It's going to be difficult to rewire them unless you go to them directly and release the emotional intensity of that experience, which is what parts work or shadow work will do for you. So look up resources online. I have a shadow work video. I'll leave it down below. But you want to start removing blocks. And specifically, I have a good exercise for you with this. Forgiveness. Okay, forgiveness is a part of shadow work, in my opinion. You want to go back to times where maybe you were hurt in love, or you were hurt in money, or all maybe the distressing experiences that you've associated with money. And you want to start forgiving those experiences and letting them go, because those are creating blocks in your energy that are causing you to stay in this overall energy of lack. And it's specifically causing you to hold on to particular identity traits that were created in these distressing moments. Overall, just remember, the moment that you start operating from an energy of abundance, from feeling like you already have enough, is the moment that you will see that reflected to you externally. You don't have to do anything more than that. These are just additional tools for if there's triggers and things coming up. But all you have to do right now today is decide to shift your energy. Decide to stop basing your energy on the past. Decide to open up to the wider truth that energy is infinite. Everything that you're seeking is waiting for you to just get into alignment with it. It's not about the external circumstance. It's not about the bill. It's not about the rent that's due. It's not about the client that won't call you back. It's about you. It's about your state. And as soon as you take responsibility for that, everything outside you will change automatically. And if you stay in an energy of having more than enough and needing nothing, scarcity, lack, limitation, it won't even be able to see you. It won't be able to find you. You will be invisible to it. And it doesn't matter where you're starting from, okay? I started from zero. I started from probably one of the worst lack mindsets you would ever see. And now I'm so abundant that scarcity can't find me. Why? Because I changed my energy. I decided that this lack, this limitation was not my story. And that's all it takes.